They thought they could chop it down and no one would stop them, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. The morning the notice showed up stapled to my 50-year-old oak tree, I stood in my slippers, coffee in hand, staring at it like it was a death sentence, and in a way, it was. A bold red violation sticker slapped crookedly over the bark, as if the tree itself had broken a law. According to the HOA, my tree was unsafe, unsightly, and non-compliant with neighborhood landscaping standards, whatever that meant. But I knew better. I'm not just a homeowner. I'm a certified arborist with 28 years of fieldwork, degrees, state licenses, and a reputation in 3 counties as the guy you call when your tree is on life support. So when they told me I had 10 days to remove it or face escalating fines starting at $500 a day, I knew this wasn't just a code issue. This was personal. See? The HOA president, Craig Dempsey, a smug retired contractor with too much free time and a riding mower he uses like a throne, had it out for me since I called him out at a meeting for approving synthetic turf in the common areas, against community bylaws. He never forgot. So when a branch fell from my oak during a windstorm and cracked a neighbor's fence, without hurting anyone, mind you, he saw his opening. I offered to pay for the damage, even had the branch hauled within the hour, but Craig pounced like a hawk. That's when the violation started. First the tree, then my gutter paint, then a non-compliant garden hose left coiled on my driveway. Petty doesn't even begin to cover it. I appealed the violation, of course, and requested an arborist review as per HOA code, but the board declined. Too late, they said. Removal is final. Except it wasn't. Not on my watch. I began documenting everything: photos, growth patterns, soil analysis, even drone footage of the canopy. I pulled the tree's maintenance logs showing years of healthy pruning and no internal rot. I emailed them a 14-page report, but no reply. So I went public. I posted the story in a local Facebook group with 17,000 members and titled it, HOA Declares War on My Tree. It blew up. Hundreds of comments, shares, even a few journalists reaching out. Turns out I wasn't the only one targeted by Craig's crusade. There was Martha, 3 blocks over, whose rose bushes were deemed too wild, and Kevin, who had to repaint his house after using a shade of beige deemed too yellow. The community was quietly boiling. That's when I took it to the county. I filed a cease and desist order citing environmental protection codes because, as it happens, my oak is a heritage tree, and under county ordinance, any tree over 30 inches in diameter and 40 years old is legally protected. I had measurements, documentation, everything, and still, the HOA doubled down. One morning, I caught a landscaping crew rolling up with chainsaws and a permit Craig had somehow rushed through, likely bypassing proper channels. I stood in front of that tree like it was a burning building. Told them if they touched one branch, I'd sue for property damage, environmental harm, and civil harassment. They left. That afternoon, I hired a legal bulldog named Stephanie Tran, specialized in HOA litigation, and we got to work. We subpoenaed internal board emails, and that's where we found the smoking gun. Craig had colluded with a private contractor he was quietly partnered with, offering tree removals at inflated rates and splitting the profits. My tree wasn't a safety hazard, it was a payday. The evidence was damning. Stephanie filed suit for harassment, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We demanded damages and a full board audit. When the story hit the local news, it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. I was getting calls from other HOAs asking for advice, tree owners thanking me, and even a retired judge who offered to consult pro bono because he knew exactly what kind of man Craig was. 3 months later, we stood in mediation. Craig tried to bluff, to bully, but the evidence was airtight. The board voted to remove him as president, pay restitution for legal fees, and most importantly, grant my tree permanent protected status in the community charter. But it didn't stop there. The community rose up. We rewrote the bylaws to limit unilateral board actions, implemented a rotating presidency, established a tree preservation committee. Guess who chairs it? The oak is still there today, branches wide like arms, roots deep in the same soil where my kids learned to ride their bikes. I hung a small brass plaque on it that reads, Survivor. Every time I pass it, I'm reminded, this wasn't just about a tree. It was about standing up to the kind of quiet tyranny that creeps into our lives in the form of petty rules and power-hungry neighbors. You can't always stop the storm, but sometimes if your roots go deep enough, you can outlast it.